first issue with the expanding foam. As you can see, I got some gooey stuff that didn't cure. I was careful, I didn't put it on too thick, but I think what happened was I tried to build up a wall here, and I think it sagged as it was trying to cure and built up right here, and it's too thick. So I'm gonna let this sit another 4 hours. I'm gonna spray a little water on it because water accelerates curing, and I'm gonna let it sit another 4 hours and see if it will cure. And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to clean it out with acetone and redo this section down here. I'm really not liking the expanding foam. It just doesn't sand smooth. It gets lots of voids in it. I think I'm gonna have to figure something else out. I don't think I'm gonna be able to keep using the expanding foam. It's nice because of how quick it is, but I don't know if I can deal with this. I mean, I'm gonna take some body filler and see if I can fill some of the voids and smooth it a little bit and see how it looks. But if that's not successful, I'll be moving on from the expanding foam. I use some body filler to fill in the deeper gaps, and give that about 15 minutes to set as chemical. It doesn't have to air dry. And then I'm going to come back with some gypsum, which is basically like sheetrocking mud. It's good for kind of smoothing out and sanding over the foam. Body filler is better because it cures in 15-20 minutes, whereas the sheetrock takes 24 hours. But since it's already late at night, I'm gonna go ahead and put the sheetrock on and just let it cure for a couple of days, and then I'll come back out on another evening and give it a sand and see how it looks. Also, I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm still waiting on this to cure or see if that cures. So I'm still experimenting. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep this piece or not. So this is all just fun and games. So I'll let that thicken, and then we'll cover it with some sheetrock mud, and then we'll see how it looks in a couple of days. That other foam that I uncovered did cure, but the gypsum is still not dry, and it's not been 24 hours, but it is really not dry. Up here is, I think I may have just got it a little thick through here. Although it's skinned over, it might not be dry all the way through. So I'm going to sand this smooth, and probably won't use any gypsum on it because I don't want to lose any more time. I'll probably body filler this and get all this bondoed, because it'll cure no matter how thick you put it on. And then that way tomorrow, hopefully this will be dry enough I can do a sand on the whole thing. In the meantime, I think I'm going to start another trial on the other side. I've got the tape there already, so I think what I'm going to do is try and actually put just a thin layer of glass and resin on the tape and use that as a base to build off of. That way I don't have to build the entire base out of foam. I can just have I can skin this in fiberglass, and then I can put just a thin layer of foam over top of this and start sanding on it. Continuing with my assertion that this is a gigantic experiment, I've removed this side that I made. It's sitting over here. I'm going to try sanding on it today and seeing how it comes out. But while I'm sanding on that, I've decided to try a different tact on the other side, a different method, and see how that works. So I went by the fabric store and just picked up a remnant of fleece. Happen to have this nice orange color. I'm going to paint my car, not this exact shade of orange, but orange. So of all the remnants, that's why I picked the orange one. And I've just kind of got it stretched tight across about where I want this piece to be. Actually, the masking tape is still in there, under there, and I'm actually stapled to the masking tape in a couple of points to kind of keep everything where I want it. So I'm just going to take and put the fiberglass resin directly into this cloth, and then stretch it back out tight and smooth it, and let this fleece dry with the resin in it. and then pop that off and use that as the basis for making a buck. And we'll see how I like the results of this side compared to the other side. And then at some point I got to make a match, so I'll probably have to redo at least one of these sides using the same method as the other side, but who knows, maybe I could sand away until they both are identical. Alright, so as I mentioned, this whole thing is an experiment right now, and the first thing I learned is that the expanding foam doesn't really work great for forming a shape. It did okay in places where I had the pink foam or fiberglass underneath it, but anywhere that I basically tried to just build its own shape, like out here over the roll bar, or out here over this space with just a piece of cardboard below it, it was so flexible that the gypsum just flaked off, and then it itself basically broke off before you could sand it. Maybe I could have cut it with a hot wire, but it was still really flimsy. So I think if I want to use the expanding foam in a can, I've got to have something solid underneath it. This at least looks something like a car part now, although not a lot. I've got a huge dip right here. I'm not too sure how I want to fill it. It would take half a can of body filler to fill it, so I'm thinking I'm fairly solid. I might try to put some of the expanding foam on it and see what it does. I've got to rebuild this edge and that corner. In general, I'm not a big fan of the gypsum. It was recommended by another YouTuber. Probably I just don't know how to use it, but it either sanded off or flaked off almost everywhere. So I think I'm going to stick to body filler for now. Maybe once I've gotten everything like good and firm. I think the problem was it was on top of the foam, right? I think it would probably be okay over top of fiberglass or body filler or something like that. So I might still be able to use it for finishing work, but as far as trying to smooth out the foam, it didn't work for that. The fleece back here is now curing. We'll see how this works. I knew this fleece would soak up some resin, but holy cow, did it soak up a lot of resin. There's an entire quart of resin right here on this piece, which is, wow. I mean, that's a quarter of a gallon. I probably could have laid up, if I'd have just laid fiberglass on top of the masking tape that was there, I probably could have laid up 5 layers of fiberglass with a quart of resin. So, we will see how this looks when it dries. It started to kick just a little bit. It's a little firm now, so I'm going to let that sit overnight, and we'll see how that looks tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm going to put some more body filler on here, or excuse me, I'm going to put some foam on here so that I can hopefully fill in that big divot in the middle there and see how that looks. And that I tried a new technique this time. After I laid the foam out, right as I laid it out, while it was still good and soft, I took a body filler spreader and just kind of massaged it. I'm not trying to level it so much, but trying to get it to gel together so that I didn't have little pieces that would chunk out. When I was working on it before, I could see where there would have been like a S-type thing where the foam went out and didn't quite mushed together before it cured, and so it was 2 separate pieces. So I just took it and kind of massaged it around with that body filler spreader, and we'll see if that gives me a more consistent texture or filling, a more solid piece. I'm also interested to see how well it sticks to what was there, because basically what was there was some bare foam, some gypsum, and some body filler. So I'm interested to see how that sticks. But we'll find out tomorrow. Well, I got distracted by my daughters earlier and didn't get any video, but the new method of applying the foam, where I tried to kind of push it down and smooth it out using a mixing paddle, didn't do a whole lot. I still got a lot of pieces that just kind of came out in nice. It wasn't like it chunked out and tore. It was, the foam never meshed together and it just separated. but I've gotten it knocked down a whole lot. Almost all the gypsum has come off at this point. I need to put some more mud on it. I came out here to work during lunch and ran out of time. I got to get some mud down here on this end. Maybe a little bit up here and over here. And, you know, I've had some chunks of gypsum come out, so I got it in there, some foam that chunked out. I just don't know that this piece is ever going to get where I want it to. I mean, it was kind of supposed to be experimental anyway. I made just time to break all the foam off and then take the 40 grit and sand off what doesn't break off and start from scratch. And maybe do something like this, because this I think is going to be a lot easier to work with. Took shape very nicely. It is a lot closer to what I think I'm looking for. Something about taking this and trimming it and getting rid of the cloth that's hanging off. I got a couple of places where I'm gonna have to definitely deal with something. This will get trimmed off, but there's still a little bit of a way here to deal with. There's a ridge right here to deal with, and then on the back side there's a big ridge right here to deal with. But I think what I could do is pack those ridges from the back side with some Duraglass and then grind the front smooth. And I think I'd be in pretty good shape as a nice base to start working with. And I think it'll be a lot easier to work from this than to try and work from what I've got over there. This here is nice and sturdy, so I could just take you know, little squares of the pink foam or the yellow foam and glue them on, or even screw them on. I've seen people do that before, run, you know, really long wood screws through just to hold the foam in place while they sand the foam. So I'm not too sure. Hopefully I'm going to stop working on this and work on glass for a couple of days. So that'll give me a couple of days to do some research and brainstorm and figure out where I want to go with this. Well, after 6 hours of trial and error, finally have the window in. There's a lot more gap here than I thought there was going to be. I mean, looking at the coupe that Factory 5 sells, it doesn't look like that big of a gap. But it uses the same door skin, and I'm in about the same spot they are. So I'm going to have to maybe ask some people who have coupes to send me some pictures of this area here so I can get a feel for what's going on. But it's there. I had my angle off initially, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of glassing in to close it up, but that's okay. What I've got right now is I've kind of got what I decided this area needs to look like, and it's drastically different than that area. So I'm fixing to take some cloth. I found some cloth that's thinner than the fleece I used over there. I'm going to lay it on here and fiberglass it to get me an initial shape to work from, and then I'll be able to get all this tape out of the way and start having a little more progress here. Well, I've got another piece of cloth stretched out. This is much thinner cloth than that fleece. That fleece took an entire quart of rosin to do the top side, and then the bottom side still felt like fleece. I had to flip it over and put another half of a quart on the bottom side. This piece here only took a quarter of a quart to do the whole thing. So what I'm going to have to do is, once this gets hard, this area here is too flat, but this gives me a good base to work off of. So I've not been happy with the foam, so I bought some plaster of Paris, and I'm going to try and put that in here and then sand that into shape and see if that works better than the foam. And then, as you can see, I'm actually overlaid with the glass here, so I'll have to trim this out to meet the glass. And then this here is probably not going to be shaped like this. This looks kind of silly. is probably going to curve like this, and then the roof section will fill in that gap. But this was the best way, I think, to get started and see how it comes out. So I'm gonna let this kick. Tonight before bed, I'll come out and put a layer of real fiberglass mat on top, and then tomorrow morning I'll be able to pop it off, trim it out, and start seeing how it works. Well, it's been almost 2 weeks since I shot my last little clip, which is really rare for me. I usually get in the shop at least every Friday, and usually try to get out once or twice during the week in the evenings just to do something and keep the project moving. But been really busy at work, had some stuff with the family going on, had some friends in town, so it's been 2 weeks. So kind of where I'm at is the glass is in, and I've got this shell that I took of roughly what I want this sail panel to look like. And so I'm fixing to roll the window back up and start trying to build this up and shape it. The first thing I'm probably going to do is just try to put maybe some body filler on it, and just get it roughly flatted out a little bit and smooth so that I can then maybe put some foam on it, because I'm not too sure how I would put foam on it right like it is. So I think that's going to be the first thing, is to just put some body filler on it and see where we go from there. As I'm wrought to do, I changed my mind again. I was looking at this orange piece that I had, and my number one concern before putting any body filler or anything on it was how flimsy it was. It was flexing a bunch. I couldn't even keep it exactly where I wanted it. And then my other big concern, let's see if I can get a picture here. Yeah, you can see this brown gray edge here. That's the edge of it. That's how much it had dipped down as the fiberglass cured the last time I made this piece. And when I made this piece, all I really had was the roll bar and the window to work with, as far as good. Those were the only places I could attach the tape. Now that I've got this piece in here, it gives me a lot more attachment points, and I think I've been able to get a much better profile. I've still got a little bit of a sag in here. I'd really like that to push out, but it's a lot closer. It's, you know, 1/4 of an inch instead of 1.5 inches. So I'm going to take the thick cloth, which made a much better mold, even though it was, or buck, even though it was much thirstier, took a lot more resin. I'm going to take that and drape it over here and make myself a fresh one that will be stiff and also much closer to the profile I need, and then I'll start from that for my final shaping, I guess. Well, I'm hoping this is going to turn out much nicer than the last one. I'm much closer, I think, to the final shape I really need. Now that I got rid of the sag that was there. One thing I did was I laid my cloth out on a piece of cardboard and soaked it with resin before I laid it on here. That way I wasn't pushing against the tape that I had suspended and pushing it down in. So hopefully it holds its shape a lot better this time. The thicker cloth should really help too. So I'm excited. It's looking good so far, but at the same time, kind of stuck waiting on fiberglass to cure. I don't know. So I came out this morning and trimmed the new piece of cloth that I'd laid up in fiberglass, and I'm real happy with how it fits up against the window and the roll bar. So I decided to kind of move on to the next step, which is trying to get it to fit along the fender and then get any low spots filled out in the middle. And then after that, I'm going to come back and glue some foam onto the back side and start trying to work the actual lip that the weather seal in the window will fit into. So I'm trying plaster of Paris, or perfect plaster as they call it. You just mix it with water. Body filler is by far the best thing to do this with, because you put catalyst in it and it's dry in 20 minutes. The difference is 2 gallons of powder, which makes about 4 or 5 gallons of plaster, is $10. And if you use body filler, you can get about $20 a gallon. So body filler is way more expensive. So we're going to try the plaster and see how it works. But the downside is it takes 24 hours to dry. So this is probably going to be the end of this video, because it'll probably be several days before I have an opportunity to sand on this and see how it turned out. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I think this is going to be a really slow process. Updates might go to bi-weekly, at least until I figure out a faster way to do this type of fiberglass modifications. So everybody have a great week.